All right, 800-941-SEAN is our toll-free telephone number. You want to be a part of the program as we say hi to Susan in Austin, Texas. Susan, hey, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Sean. Thanks for taking my call. Listen, I am a worried Republican, and I'm particularly worried about our Texas gubernatorial race next Tuesday. The CPAC straw poll, did you pay attention to it last weekend?
Yeah, Ron Paul won.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If you look behind the curtain, and I know a lot of Americans understand a straw poll and that it's not done scientifically, but if you look at the information, more than half of the registrants at CPAC last weekend were young students, and only 25% of those attendees bothered to participate in the straw poll. So my concern today is that people who are well-intended but don't necessarily look behind information to check and double-check it, that's going to influence them not only for the November elections, but especially here in Texas next Tuesday. Our Ron Paul supporters have moved over to Deborah Medina, and I want people to remember you've got to look at what's behind any piece of information, because this is what it is, just a straw poll. And as you can tell, the information is skewed by who was there and who voted.
You know, every time I say I don't support Ron Paul for president, I get a boatload of emails. That's because you're not a real constitutionalist, Hannity. You're not a real conservative. And I'm like,
right.
First of all, there's a lot that Ron Paul says that I like and agree with. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm kind of glad that there's Ron Pauls out there. And I find that he's more libertarian than I am. I don't agree with his position on the war and some of the other issues that have come up. I don't have a problem with him or the fact that his supporters threw snowballs at me in New Hampshire. I just don't care. If you're asking me if he's got any chance whatsoever of ever getting the nomination, I don't think he does. I think his support is loud but thin. And, but look, if he wants to get in the race, let him get in. I mean, I think it's healthy to have the debate. I don't know really that many areas of disagreement I have with him. I think he's been great on issues of limited government and limited spending and things like that. And when he's right, I'm going to support him.
Right.
So
right. But mainstream America is not reflected by some of the other things that he says about national security, immigration reform, etc. And mainstream America, you and I both know, mainstream America is conservative. Look what happened in New Jersey. Look what happened in Virginia with those governor's races. It bothers me when you get a third person in a Republican Party, they take votes away.
Look, everything I've been reading is Rick Perry's going to pretty much run away with this thing. The question is whether or not there's a runoff. If he gets 50% of the vote, that won't happen. If he doesn't, then it's a problem.
Yeah,
Look, first of all, I never understood completely the dynamic of why Kay Bailey Hutchinson, decided to primary him. Because she's one of the most popular political figures in Texas. And I like her. I just quite didn't understand why she didn't just stay in the Senate and let Perry run the state. I think Perry's done a pretty good job for Texas.
Right. And between Kay and Rick Perry, you can look at their records. You have hardcore evidence. He fits the definition of a conservative Republican. She does not. She's predictably a moderate when she votes. And I don't even know how she even gets any followers, let alone competing against Rick Perry. But people listen to sound bites, and I don't want them to listen to the straw poll and let it influence them.
Well, I think people are smart enough. They understand that sort of thing. I think a lot of that is rooted in the general, genuine, sincere frustration and anger, that the residual anger justified that exists at the Republican Party. I think one thing that happened at this healthcare summit today that kind of blows out of the water an argument that has been made by some that there's not a dime's worth of difference between the two parties. I think when we go back to 2000.